transcription factors, signal transduction proteins, cell cycle control proteins, proteins that regulate cell death and apoptosis. Many of those key regulators are highly unstable proteins, which then allows for changes in gene transcription and protein synthesis to affect rapid changes in their level. Now, the way in which proteins are degraded in cells, there's multiple different mechanisms, but within the cytosol, within the cytoplasm and nucleus of cells, the key mechanism is known as the ubiquitin proteasome system, okay? And this is a vast system. So in every one of the nuclei, every cell in your body, you have about 22,000 or so different genes. Well, of those 22,000, only 1,000 of them, so about 5%, are involved in creating a ubiquitin signal, in reading the ubiquitin signal, or in erasing the ubiquitin signal. And you'll see what I mean by that in the next slide. So ubiquitin itself is a small protein, 76 amino acids, and it gets covalently attached to other proteins. And for that to happen, it has to be activated, and it's activated by an enzyme known as the E1 enzyme. And once it is attached to the E1 enzyme, it is then transferred to an E2 enzyme, which is also known as the ubiquitin conjugating protein. The E2 enzyme then collaborates with an E3 enzyme, also known as the ubiquitin ligase, to transfer ubiquitin to a substrate protein. And the way that works is the E3 grabs the E2 ubiquitin complex, and it grabs the substrate protein, and it holds the two of them in proximity so that ubiquitin transfer can occur to the substrate protein. Now, once you have ubiquitin on a protein, the reaction can stop there. In that case, it's very much like phosphorylation. It changes the function of the protein in some way, either its association with other proteins, or its localization in the cell, or its activity. But the reaction can continue. Repeated cycles of each reaction, and now you can have multiple ubiquitins transferred out to the protein. And that can occur in multiple different types of configurations. I've illustrated one here, where you have the ubiquitin chain being built upon the protein, where the ubiquitin itself becomes the target for subsequent ubiquitin additions. And in addition to attaching ubiquitin, just as is the case for protein phosphorylation, there's a back reaction. And the back reaction is carried out by enzymes. They're referred to by different names. A common one is DUBs, for deubiquitinating enzyme. And they can either trim chains down to a smaller size, or they can remove single ubiquitin modifications. And it's highly analogous to protein phosphorylation, where you have kinases putting phosphate on, single phosphatases taking the phosphate off. Now, you can get, when you have a chain of ubiquitins, again, that can alter the function of the protein. But in addition, it can also specify degradation of the protein by a complex cellular structure known as the proteasome over here. And in that case, the protein is destroyed with component amino acids and ubiquitin is recycled. Now, what determines whether you have signaling or degradation? Well, there's a set of proteins in the cell known as ubiquitin binding proteins, which are abbreviated here as UBP. And those proteins recognize the ubiquitin modifications, and they're specific for different types of ubiquitin modifications. And they determine the final biological outcome of the ubiquitination. Now, I just depicted down here the number of genes in the human genome that are devoted to these various functions of the pathway. And I'd like you to know a couple of things. First of all, the most abundant member of the family in terms of number of genes are these so-called E3 enzymes. So there's about 600 of those encoded in the human genome. And that makes sense because those are the enzymes that confer specificity on the system, right? Because they bind the substrate and the E2. And therefore, they determine what proteins are being modified. They are also most frequently the targets of regulation. We'll talk more about that later on in the talk. Now, in addition, there's about 300 ubiquitin binding proteins with ubiquitin binding domains. There's 15 different domains that bind ubiquitin, and they're spread out over 300 different proteins. So you can see how you can have many different biological outcomes of these ubiquitin modifications because you have so many of these proteins that read the modification. But again, the outcome that we'll talk about, we'll focus in this talk, is proteolysis by the proteasome. Now, this system has the its size, remember 1,000 genes in the human genome. It's terribly important for human biology and physiology. And as a result, when things go wrong in the system through a mutation, it predisposes to a number of different human diseases. And here I just sketched out some instances where there are direct causal links between the ubiquitin proteasome system and human disease. And this is due to mutations that are known to occur in humans that predispose to these diseases. So for cancer, we have mutations in several different E3 ubiquitin ligases and a mutation in a ubiquitinating enzyme that give rise to a predisposition to a whole range of different cancers as indicated over here. In addition, neurodegenerative disease, there are mutations in ubiquitin conjugating enzymes and a ubiquitin chaperone protein that we'll hear about in part 3. And how these give rise to different neurodegenerative diseases, including ALS, Gehrig's disease, Angelman syndrome, and others. And finally, cardiovascular disease. It's known that mutations in one of the coloring ligases, which will be the subject of part 2, give rise to a disease characterized by hypertension. And this is not intended to be a comprehensive list of diseases. These are just a subset of the ones that we know, but it illustrates the importance of the system to human physiology and human health. Now, I mentioned earlier that ubiquitin becomes conjugated to proteins in a covalent linkage, and this shows the linkage right here. So ubiquitin at its C-terminus has a glycine 76, which is shown right here, and that residue forms an amide linkage with the amino group on the side chain of a lysine residue in the target protein. So here's the side chain of the lysine residue, there's the amino group right there, and this is the amide linkage that forms with the C-terminus of ubiquitin. So essentially, the protein that has ubiquitin conjugated to it now has two amino termini and is a branched out peptide. Now, once you have ubiquitin attached, I mentioned that subsequent ubiquitins can be attached to the first ubiquitin. And I've shown here at the bottom ubiquitin, and then the numbers refer to different lysines in ubiquitin. So ubiquitin has 7 different lysines, so for example, lysine 29 and lysine 33 and so forth. And it also has an amino terminus. And all of those positions can accept a ubiquitin molecule. So you can make 8 different types of ubiquitin chain linkages, each of which has a distinct biology. Okay, this just shows some of the linkages. So I mentioned earlier, you get monoubiquitination, that's all the way on the left, and that has been shown to be important in processes like endocytosis, protein transport, and DNA repair. You can also build chains on the lysine 63 of ubiquitin, and those have been prominently associated, again, with protein transport and DNA repair. Now, for protein degradation by the proteasome, the linkages that have been shown to play a very important role are the lysine 48 and the lysine 11 linkages. And lysine 48 in particular seems to have a dedicated role for protein degradation. Now, there's further complexity here that I haven't touched on yet, and that is that there's recent evidence that you can form branched ubiquitin chains where you have a ubiquitin interchange that has one linkage, let's say K11, and then a second linkage like K48. And that creates a branched structure. And there's now data to indicate that those branched structures also have unique biological functions, although those studies are in their very early days. So there's a great deal that needs to be done and needs to be understood. But if you think about it, adding the idea of branches really explodes the potential complexity of the system. Now, I mentioned we're going to focus on protein degradation by the proteasome, and so here's the proteasome itself. This is a very, very large protein complex. It has 30 different polypeptide subunits, and they break up into two separate complexes known as the 20S core, that's right here, and the 19S cap, that's right here. Now, the 20S core is a cylinder. It's an empty cylinder, and on the inside, it has 2 copies each of 3 different proteolytic active sites. That's the degradative chain. Proteins get inserted into the 20S core and then destroyed by those 6 proteolytic active cells. Now, to get in the 20S core, normally the ends of the 20S core is sealed, and to open them up, you have to have a 19S cap that binds. And the 19S cap has several different important components. So first, you have a ring of ATPases. They're right here, and those ATPases sit up against the 20S, and they open, it's like opening the diaphragm of a camera. They open up the 20S so that proteins can be inserted inside. There are also ubiquitin receptor proteins. There's one shown up here at the top of the proteasome, and those bind the ubiquitin chain and hold the substrate there so that it can be degraded by the proteasome. And now, normally the proteasome would have a cap on each end, but for simplicity, I've only shown here a cap on one end. And this is an image that was graciously given to me by Dr. Andreas Park at UC Berkeley. Now, this is going to rotate just so you can see the proteasome from different angles. And now let's step through what happens when a substrate comes to the proteasome. So here we have a substrate protein in red. It's got a ubiquitin chain on it in blue of K48 linkages, and they're attached by that yellow lysine in the middle of the red polypeptide. So the first thing that's going to happen is this substrate is going to dock, and it's going to dock by binding the ubiquitin receptor on the proteasome that's known as RBM10 right here. And so here's the substrate. It's going to come in. It's going to dock. The next thing that will happen is the substrate is going to engage by inserting its tail into the ring of ATPases. This is the ring of ATPases down here. The tail is going to move, and it's going to insert itself into that ring. And they're going to begin grabbing onto that tail and pulling it down to pull the protein into the maw of the proteasome so that it can be degraded. The next thing that's going to happen as that pulling starts is the protein is going to move downwards towards this green protein, RPN11. And RPN11 is a protease, we'll hear about it in part 3, that removes the ubiquitin chain, because otherwise the ubiquitin chain would scarcely interfere with insertion of the protein into the proteasome. And so that ubiquitin chain is going to be cut off by RPN11, it'll diffuse away so that it can be recycled for further use. And there's the cleavage events occurring, the chain dissociates, diffuses away, and now the rest of the substrate is dragged into the proteasome and destroyed. Now that we know how the protein is degraded, I'm going to focus extensively on the ubiquitin conjugation by the ubiquitin ligases. Now, I mentioned earlier that this is part of the dynamic where you have the E2 and E3 enzymes that are visually putting ubiquitin onto substrates, but in addition, you have deubiquitinating enzymes that are removing the ubiquitins. And this is a dynamic balance that plays an important role in controlling what proteins are degraded and the rates they're degraded at. However, I'm going to focus in the remainder of my talk on these E3 ubiquitin ligases, and equally one discussion can be made about the deubiquitinating enzymes themselves. But I would just like to mention that many of the regulatory concepts that I lay out for the E3 enzymes are shared by the deubiquitinating enzymes, so there's many different ways of controlling their activity as well. So I said earlier that there is about 600 E3 enzymes, and in the human genome, there's 2 different domains that control the vast majority of ubiquitin ligases, and those domains are the so-called HEC domain and the ring domain. So there's 28 HEC domain genes in the human genome, there's about 300 ring domains. You'll hear in part 2 that 2 of those 300 ring domain proteins are used in a combinatorial fashion to assemble another roughly 250 or so ubiquitin ligases known as color ring ligases. And so when you add everything up, you get to around 600 ubiquitin ligases. Now, these 2 classes, the HEC and the ring ubiquitin ligases, work by very different mechanisms. So they both share in common that they recruit a substrate and they recruit an E2 enzyme. Okay? But then, in the HEC domain ligase, the E3 itself has a catalytic site that accepts ubiquitin from the E2 over here, and then transfers that ubiquitin to the substrate. Meanwhile, with the ring domain ligase, you bind the substrate and the E2, but then the ubiquitin is transferred directly from the E2 to the substrate without an intermediate on the E3 enzyme. Now, that may sound arcane, but the important point is that in the case of the HEC domain ligases, it's the E3 that determines the linkage, because that's where the last step of the reaction is happening, on the surface of the E3. That's where the chemistry occurs. Whereas with the ring domain ligases, it's the E2 that determines the linkage, because the chemistry is occurring on the surface of the E2. And that's critical, because if you remember from earlier, the linkages end up determining the resulting biology of the ubiquitination event. Now, another thing that's important, especially when thinking about building ubiquitin chains, is that for a ubiquitin chain to be built, there must be multiple cycles of E2 recruitment to the E3 enzyme. And that's because after you transfer your first ubiquitin, you would have to recharge. So now we have an E2 here, and the E2 is uncharged. So you have to restore ubiquitin on that E2, and that requires E1. However, E1 and the ubiquitin ligase E3, they recognize the same surface on the E2, which I've denoted here as the dark blue part of the shaded oval. And so for the recharging to occur, the E2 has to come off to E3, and then a new E2 molecule, the cellular pool that's already been charged, is bind. And once one of these binds, it can then transfer its ubiquitin onto the substrate, and in that manner, you can start building ubiquitin chains. Now, this just shows a little bit more detail what I told you. And so you have an E3 enzyme here at the top in part A. It will bind the substrate and ubiquitin charged E2 simultaneously in part B. And then the substrate lysine, this is a ring domain enzyme I'm showing here. So the substrate lysine directly will attack the ubiquitin linkage on the E2, and you'll get ubiquitin transfers I'm shown in part C. The E2 then has to dissociate, and a new molecule, a charged E2 can bind, that's in part E. And then it will transfer its cargo, in this case onto the lysine residue of the first ubiquitin that was attached. So now you'll have a chain of 2 ubiquitins. This can continue for multiple cycles until the substrate dissociates. So in the end, the length of the ubiquitin chain that forms on the substrate is really a function just of the relative kinetics of the different processes of how fast the substrate dissociates versus how fast the E2 binds, transfers its ubiquitin, and dissociates to allow a new E2 to come in. So the longer a substrate is bound, the more ubiquitins it can receive. So it's just a very simple idea. Now, these reactions, as I mentioned earlier, are highly regulated. And there's many different types of regulation that can occur. I'm not going to cover them all. I'll just give you a flavor for the types of regulation because that's the most highly studied. And so, one of the most intensively studied forms of regulation in the ubiquitin system is the protein phosphorylation. And so we know that E3s and substrates are both regulated. So on the left, I show you an example of that's prominent with the so-called FCS ubiquitin ligases. We'll hear about that in part 2, where phosphorylation of the substrate creates a signal, and that signal then allows the substrate to bind directly to the E3. And so, in that case, phosphorylation is switching on the substrate. Now, there's also a role for phosphorylation turning on the enzyme. That's seen with the ADCC, which is an important cell cycle control enzyme, where phosphorylation creates a binding site for a substrate recruiting factor, here known as CDC20, bound to a substrate, allowing them to dock on the enzyme, so the substrate will be vinculated. And phosphorylation also has an inhibitory role, once again, with the ADCC, where you phosphorylate the adapter, the orange protein here, and that phosphorylation blocks its binding to the E3, and therefore prevents the substrate from being degraded. So both positive and negative roles for phosphorylation. There's other types of regulation as well. One of my favorites was discovered by Nick Zhang at the University of Washington, where he showed the way auxin signaling works in the plant. So auxin is a very important hormone in plant photomorphogenesis, and it works by binding a ubiquitin ligase known as TER1. TER1 has a set of substrates, and those substrates can't bind on their own. Here's an example substrate up here, because they don't have perfect complementarity with the binding site. But auxin, in effect, makes them whole. It rounds out the configuration, so now you have a nice binding from the substrate to the enzyme in the presence of auxin. And in that matter, auxin is a coligand that stimulates degradation. There's also pseudosubstrate inhibitors that mimic a substrate, but they don't have a lysine, so they can't be related or not degraded, so they can just clog up the enzyme. And there's also examples of allosteric regulation, where a small molecule, in this case this purple box down here, that small molecule can bind the autoinhibitory part of the ligase shown here, and cause it to undergo conformational change and move out of the way to allow substrate to bind. And there's some examples of that form of regulation as well. And there's many others that I'm not going to describe here, but just give you a flavor of how complicated the regulation can be. Now, I'd like to go through examples of how different signaling systems can work together, how ubiquitin systems can work to control a complex biological output. And this example here was derived from work that my lab and a number of other labs indicated down below here did about 15 or so years ago, in trying to understand how each cell goes from the G1 phase of the cell cycle to the S phase of the cell cycle, where it's going to replicate its DNA. Now, a key factor in replicating the DNA is an S phase cyclic CDK complex that's going to activate the replication proteins. That's produced in G1 phase, but the minute it's produced, it's shut off. And it's shut off by binding of a CDK inhibitor that's known as SIC1 or SIC1. Now, at the same time, there's a different CDK complex, the G1 cyclic CDK, and that complex is active and it's not subject to inhibition by SIC1. In fact, quite the opposite, the G1 cyclic CDK phosphorylates the SIC1 protein, and that phosphorylation is depicted up here as these yellow spheres. And once the SIC1 is phosphorylated, the phosphates are epitopes, if you will, for an SCF ubiquitin ligase that then binds those phosphates and elaborates the ubiquitin chain on the SIC1 protein. The proteasome then does this remarkable feat of gymnastics, where it can grab that ubiquitin chain and strip the SIC1 off the cyclin CDK complex without harming it at all. In fact, it releases the cyclin CDK complex in an active form and destroys the SIC1. And in this manner, phosphorylation and ubiquitination collaborate hand in hand to drive an essential transition in the cell cycle. And a very similar process occurs in human cells with a similar set of proteins. Now, another example, and this is very critical in human physiology, concerns how your tissues sense oxygen. And this is very important because if you have insufficient oxygen, two things need to happen. First of all, you need to induce the production of more red blood cells. And second of all, you need to induce the production of more capillaries, more blood vessels, to supply oxygen to the tissues that are deprived of oxygen. And the way this works is there's a key transcription factor. There's actually two. I'm just showing one here. HIN1 alpha and HIN2 alpha. HIN stands for hypoxia-inducible factor. Now, these transcription factors normally are barely detectable in a typical cell that's well oxygenated. And the reason they're barely detectable is that there's an enzyme known as prolyl hydroxylase that uses molecular oxygen to hydroxylate a protein on those transcription factors on HIN1 alpha and HIN2 alpha. That hydroxylated protein, which I've denoted here, serves as a direct ligand for ubiquitin ligase known as the DHL ubiquitin ligase. That then transfers ubiquitin onto the hydroxylated protein, and then the hydroxylated protein is destroyed by the proteasome. Now, what happens if you have a cell in your body that's experiencing oxygen deficit because it's too far away from a blood vessel? Well, in that cell, the oxygen concentration is very low. And it turns out that the prolyl hydroxylase enzyme has a lousy Km, a lousy Michaelis constant for oxygen. So at low oxygen, the enzyme is no longer saturated, and it can no longer operate efficiently. So the proline on HIF protein is not hydroxylated, and if it's not hydroxylated, the protein now becomes stable. It rapidly piles up, it translocates to the nucleus, and it binds to the promoters of genes that are involved in production of red blood cells and in angiogenesis, which is the building of new blood vessels. And so in that manner, your body can mount an appropriate response to oxygen deprivation. Now, it's interesting to note that DHL is a very prominent tumor suppressor protein, and that's because as the tumor starts to grow in your body, once they achieve a diameter of about 1 millimeter, already the cells aren't getting enough oxygen to sustain them. And so if they lose DHL, they can now very efficiently promote the formation of blood vessels because the HIF proteins are no longer being degraded. And so people who are born missing one allele DHL are prone to having cancer, in particular kidney cancer. Now, there's other pathways. There's many pathways in the cell that are controlled by the ubiquitin system. I just listed some of them here. And one thing I didn't draw attention to yet, but in the two examples I gave you, ubiquitin is used in very different ways. In the first example, activation of degradation is used to achieve signaling, right? Where you degrade the SIC1 and signaling, you go from G1 to S phase. In the second example, with HIF, is the inhibition of degradation that achieves signaling. When you have low degradation, you get hypoxic signaling via the HIF proteins. And in these pathways, it's no different. The ones in gray here, those are cases where signaling, where the degradation occurs constitutively, and signaling, for example, by WNT, shuts off the degradation. In this case, of beta-catenin, the one I mentioned at the top of the list. The other example, NF-kappa B and auxin, are cases where degradation activates signaling. In the case of NF-kappa B, it's inhibited by I-kappa B. We have signaling, you destroy I-kappa B, so NF-kappa B switches on. Now, I was focused exclusively on regulation so far, but that's really only half the story. So, indeed, these endocrine system plays a very important role in regulatory biology, as exemplified by the degradation of cyclins to inactivate CDK at the end of mitosis. But the ubiquitin proteasome system also plays a very critical role in protein quality control. So you're constantly producing new proteins, as I mentioned earlier in my talk, and degrading existing proteins. When you produce new proteins, a certain fraction of those are bound to misfold. And they misfold either because they just don't achieve the right conformation, because they fail to find their partners and they need to assemble a complex, or because of mistakes in translation. And at some level, the entire proteome is subject to this kind of defective production. And so the ubiquitin system plays a very, very important role in cleaning up after those mistakes to prevent them from accumulating. And just as mutations in these regulatory pathways can lead to cancer, mutations in these quality control pathways can lead to neurodegenerative disease. And so these are really the two major important functions of the pathway that are commanding a lot of the attention of researchers in the field. Thank you for your attention, and in my next talks I'll cover colon-ring ubiquitin ligases and using the ubiquitin pathway as a target for developing drugs to treat this disease. Thank you. Hi again, everyone. Once again, this is Ray Deshaies. I'm a professor at Caltech, Division of Biology, and Howard Hughes Medical Institute investigator. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. In part 1, I gave a primer on the ubiquitin proteasome system, and here in part 2, I'm going to talk about colon-ring ubiquitin ligases, their structure, mechanism, and regulation. Now, just to give you a little bit of a reorientation from the first part, I discussed there the overall organization and function of the ubiquitin pathway, and what I'm going to be focusing on in this talk is, in particular, this part of the pathway where E3 enzymes catalyze the assessment of ubiquitin on the substrate proteins. And in particular, I'm going to focus on a specific set of E3 enzymes known as colon-ring ubiquitin ligases. And I touched on these briefly in part 1, but again, just to reorient, there's 2 different domains that comprise the vast majority of ubiquitin ligases encoded in the human genome. And those are known as the hex domain and the ring domain. And there's about 300 ring domain genes and about 28 hex domain genes encoded in the genomes of each of our cells. Now, the important point for this talk is that 2 of those ring domain proteins, known as RBX1 and RBX2, can be used in a combinatorial fashion that I'll show in the next slide to assemble another roughly 250 or so ubiquitin ligase enzymes known as colon-ring ubiquitin ligases. And so that's shown here. They're now added up all together. One has roughly 600 different ubiquitin ligases within a human cell and spruce. Now, how does this combinatorial process work? So this shows the first member of this family, the sort of forerunner of the family, known as the SCF-CDC4 complex that was discovered in budding yeast in the study of DNA replication. But as you'll see, we now know this is present throughout eukaryotes in many different types of functions. And just a word of caution, the first set of these ubiquitin ligases, or colon-ring ligases, are known as SCFs. They're also known occasionally as CRL1 enzymes, and the other members of the family are known as CRL, CRL3, 4, and so forth. Now, back to the modular nature. So in this SCF-CDC4 complex, we have the colon, the col1, which is the orange protein. That's a scaffold that organizes the complex. On one end, it binds a ring domain subunit, RBX1, that's the blue opal. And on the other end, it binds an adapter protein known as SCIP1. And SCIP1 is linked to a substrate receptor known as CDC4 by that little nubbin on CDC4 that's known as an F-box. And the CDC4 in this case recruits a substrate. It has various substrates. One of them is SIC1 or SIP1. Now, this complex can disassemble at the col1 SCIP1 interface, and a different adapter F-box protein can now be slotted into place. And that particular F-box and GCR1 have a different set of substrates, including G1 cycles. So by switching out the F-box protein, you switch the function of the catalytic core so that it now has a completely new activity, targets different substrates, participates in different biology. Now, in yeast, there are 20 of these so-called F-box proteins, CDC4 being one of them. In humans, there's about 70 of them. So you can form potentially 70 of these SCF, CRL1 ubiquitin ligases in a human cell, each of which can have a different function. Now, that seems like it would be enough, right? But it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. There's a CRL2 that's organized on a col2 scaffold. There's also a family of substrate receptors here that share a common element. That element is known as a SOX box right there. And there's about 40 SOX box proteins in the human genome. There's also a CRL3, a CRL4, a CRL5, a CRL7. All of them, I forgot actually, CRL4A and 4B, together with complexity. All of them have families of substrate receptors. If you add up all those substrate receptors, you can make about 250 different CRL enzymes. Now, to be doing that tremendous complexity, CRL enzymes have a vast impact on human biology, both normal human biology and physiology, but also in human disease. And so a major focus of my lab has been to understand these enzymes. How do they work? What do they do? Biochemically speaking, what are their substrates? What do they do physiologically speaking? How are they regulated? And how are they assembled? And I'll touch on some of those themes in this talk today. Now, this shows one particular SCF-CRL1 complex, and I'll illustrate here a little bit about what we know of how these things work to build ubiquitin chain. Now, in this case, a lot of these studies were done with this particular substrate that's known as cycle E, but what I'm going to tell you applies among to essentially all of these complexes. Now, what's just been shown in the past year, so this is a really, really active area of research in the past year, the past 3 months, is that there's a protein RE1 that's a hybrid ring hex type ubiquitin ligase, and that's recruited to the SCF complex, and it recruits an E2 enzyme, a dedicated E2 enzyme, UBCH7 is known as, and that serves as the initiator of the ubiquitin chain assembly reaction. It transfers ubiquitin first to RE1, and then from RE1 onto the cycle E substrate. And so that initiates the formation of the ubiquitin chain. The initiator E2 and RE1 then disappear, and a different E2 comes into the picture that binds directly to the ring on col1, and that E2 will then transfer its ubiquitin directly to the first ubiquitin to begin the process of chain assembly. A new molecule is recruited to transfer this ubiquitin, and so forth, until a ubiquitin chain is achieved and the substrate is targeted to the proteasome for degradation. And so in this manner, there's essentially an active where 2 different E2 E3 complexes are operating in tandem, one to initiate change, and the other one to elongate the change, so that you build substrates that are competent for degradation by the proteasome. Now, an important part of understanding SCF and other colon-ring ligases is how they're regulated. And a really critical step in regulation is modification with the ubiquitin ubiquitin-like protein on the colon subunit. And the ubiquitin-like protein is known as NET8, NETDA8, and it's going to be attached somewhere in this vicinity on the colon subunit. And when it's attached, it's going to cause the green part of that colon subunit to essentially split open. Like an overripe melon, I guess. It splits open, and then what happens is the green subunit, which is dark blue here, which is normally ensconced down in that green domain of the colon, it springs, and that springs forward, it's like a jack-in-the-box, if you will, and it brings with it the E2 enzyme shown here. And this solves what was a conundrum we feel for many years, which is that in the original structure, you can see here, the E2 enzyme active site, where the ubiquitin is far away from the substrate where the ubiquitin is going to have to be transferred to, and there's no way the chemistry can happen across that construct gap. But when the NET8 is attached to the colon, it's going to fold underneath and come down here, it'll be yellow, we'll see on the next slide. The green domain is going to split open, the ring is going to carry the E2 to the substrate, and now you can see the active site is very close to the substrate. And in that way, you switch on the activity of the ubiquitin ligase. Now, that attachment of NET8 is a reversible reaction, and it's extremely dynamic. It's constantly being added and removed at a very fast rate inside cells. And the enzyme that removes it is a large protein complex of 8 subunits known as the Cap9 sigma-some. And this just shows an image from a paper my lab published in collaboration with the TS Peters lab earlier this year. It's a cryo-EM image of the Cap9 sigma-some bound to an SCF complex. So in green here is the COL1, and you can see in gray here is SCF2. That's an FOX protein. That protein in this structure was mobile, so you don't see electron density where it exists, so it's been modeled in there. But the important point is that you can see there's not much daylight between SCF2 and the Cap9 sigma-some. And the important point of that is that when a substrate is bound to SCF2, it would occlude the ability of the Cap9 sigma-some to bind, just like physical steric collision. And so the idea is that substrate would prevent the removal of the NET8 and hold the enzyme in the active state. And to test whether that's the case, we did the biochemical experiment shown on this slide, where we have purified COL1 with NET8 attached to it, and then we have purified Cap9 sigma-some. And we can measure the rate at which the NET8 is removed, and you can see we get a certain rate shown in this curve here. Now, if we add an FOX protein, we can see that rate slows down, and if we have substrate for the FOX protein, it slows down even further. And so the ability of Cap9 sigma-some to remove the NET8 is intimately connected to the assembly state of the metallated colon complex, with substrate inhibiting that process. Now, this is not restricted to COL1. Here I borrowed data from a colleague, Nico Thomas' lab, he's at the Friedrich Fischer Institute in Basel, Switzerland, and he also solved the cryo-EM structure of Cap9 sigma-some. This case bound to a different color, COL4. And what you see here in the blow-up is the substrate receptor COL4. It's in green over here, DD2. And it's bound to its substrate. Its substrate is actually damaged DNA. Okay, so it's bound to damaged DNA. And what Nico is showing here is that the damaged DNA will physically clash with the Cap9 sigma-some over here. So that once again, two different things can't occupy the same space. So if the DD2 COL4 complex is bound to damaged DNA, the Cap9 sigma-some can't come in and remove NET8 from that complex. And that's shown here, where they're simply titrating in DNA at different concentrations and looking at the rate at which the NET8 is removed from the COL4. And as you can see, the rate QOPS as the DNA concentration is increased again, echoing what I showed you in the prior slide for COL1. Now, to study this process further, Nathan Pierce, the graduate student in my lab at St. Luke, began studying. They wanted to understand how this NET8 denatylation process is connected potentially to the reconfiguration of SCF complexes. And our initial idea was very simple. Our initial idea was the way you make different SCF complexes is that the FOX SCF1 complex interface with the COL1 ring would be dynamic. It's inherently unstable, and so that keeps falling apart at a certain rate, which will allow you to assemble different SCF complexes. So Nathan set out to measure that rate, and what he found, much to his surprise, is that complex is actually rock stable. He could measure a rate 10 to the minus 6 per second. In English, that translates to a T1/2 of 9 days. That means if you start with this complex, you have to wait 9 days for atoms to fall apart. So that's clearly not going to be useful to achieve biology at any reasonable speed. And so the reason there must be something that promotes the assembly of these complexes so that they can be remodeled. And the candidate that we settled on is a protein that's known as CAM1, CAMD1. And CAM1 has been discovered as a COL1 binding protein. And of course, very stable complexes with COL1 and it inhibits SCF and other colon ring ligases. However, what was puzzling is that whereas biochemically it was an inhibitor, when you knock it out genetically in plants, the cells behave as if they have a reduction in SCF activity. So the genetic side was positive, biochemistry side was negative, and then we set out to try to understand what it might do in the context of SCF assembly. And what Nathan noticed is when he added CAM1 to his system, now what had been a very slow dissociation became extremely rapid. And as measured here, where now the off rate of the FOX SCF1 from COL1 is no longer 10 to the minus 6 per second, it's 1.3 per second. Now, it's not hard to do that math. That's clearly about a million-fold difference in rate. So CAM1 dramatically accelerates the rate at which an FOX SCF1 complex comes off of COL1. Now, a key part that I haven't told you yet is that rate, those rates that Nathan was measuring, those were done with COL1 that was not modified with NET8. That was the naked COL1. If you put NET8 on the COL1, now CAM1 can't do anything. It can no longer break that complex apart. So CAM1 essentially can take that box off, but only if the NET8 is first removed. And remember, removal of NET8 is gated by substrate. Now, what happens at this point? So the COL1 is bound to CAM1 in this scheme, and this is a very stable complex, and so, or at least we thought it was probably a stable complex, so how does the cell resolve that situation? And so Xing Ru took up this problem, and she developed an assay to monitor the rate at which CAM1 falls off COL1. And true to our expectation, that's a very stable complex. The graph shows the rate at which it falls off, and as you can see, essentially it's not falling off at all. That line's flat line. So once you form CAM1 COL1, it's got a T1/2 of many hours. However, if you add an FOX SCF1, in this case, we use SCF2 SCF1, it doesn't really matter which one you use, it's the same for all of them. That dramatically accelerates the rate at which CAM1 falls off, and that's shown by the red curve over here. And you can see the reaction is over by 5 seconds. So both CAM1 COL1 and FOX SCF COL1, both of those separate complexes are very stable. The way this works is that when you add CAM1 to an FOX COL1 complex, you form a ternary complex where all three are left. And when they're all bound together, that complex is metastable. It's highly unstable. And it's unstable because SCF1 has roots and CAM1 has roots that interfere in that ternary complex. They collide with each other. And essentially they're like elbows pushing at each other. And they make each other's binding.